Before we get too much further along this month with shorties and full episodes, let's take a little detour. We just watched an anthology known as Dark Tales of Japan, a made-for-TV project which features 5 short horror films by 5 different directors. Its bookended at the beginning and the end with the framing device of an elderly woman telling some spooky stories on a bus. The scariest part, however, is that they're driving on the wrong side of the road the whole time. Stay safe, kids. Be careful out there. Don't text and drive.
If you're hungering for a buffet of dark tales and you don't have the time or patience to sit through a single story for 2 hours, Dark Tales of Japan might be right up your alley. Before jumping in though, there are a few bits of information that might help you on your journey. In the spirit of Cinema Nippon shorties, we're providing an introduction here, not out-and-out spoilers for the project. So previous travelers and newcomers alike, let's hop on the bus and take a ride into Dark Tales of Japan to explore some of its cultural background.
The first film, The Spider Woman, was written and directed by Yoshihiro Nakamura, probably best known outside of Japan for his work as screenwriter on the original Dark Water film. Of note is that Nakamura also directed the bookends for the anthology. Whoa, I hear you saying, Spider-Woman? That's right, but we're not talking about Spider-Gwen. Instead, we're talking about a creature inspired by the Joro-gumo. This friendly-looking woman is a yokai, or mythological Japanese being which can transform into a seductive woman when hunting humans, her primary source of nourishment. The Joro-gumo also serves as the basis for the Spider Queen in Okami. Any gamers in the audience? The Spider-Woman follows the exploits of a tabloid reporter as he investigates a rash of sightings of a creature bearing a striking resemblance to the Joro-gumo. The film straddles the line between weird and wacky, but delivers a satisfying twist or two, setting up the tone for the rest of the anthology.
Crevices is a piece directed by Norio Tsuruta, director of Premonition, and written by Naoya Takayama, who would go on to script the film adaptation of the game series Siren. This one is extremely short, so not much can be said about it without giving anything away. Just know that if you're a fan of Children of the Mirror, you'll be interested in this one. Remember, keep your Tindalos doorways in view at all times.
The Sacrifice, one of the longer films in the anthology, was co-written by Naoyuki Yokota and Koji Shiraishi, and directed by the latter of the two. This team would work together again on their perhaps best-known project, The Slit-Mouthed Woman. Shiraishi is also known for the 2009 film Grotesque, a torture porn film which was banned in Britain, leading to Shiraishi talking shit like a boss. The Sacrifice deals with a young woman beset by a series of items and images which would indicate that a curse has been placed on her. We say would indicate, as this is probably the most open-ended of the films in the collection. It's the kind where you definitely need to see it for yourself and draw your own conclusions. Bear in mind the importance of both cicadas and curses.
Cicadas are considered to be a symbol of summertime, given their ever-present status during this season. Any anime viewers in the audience? Not just in Japan, but in global mythology, cicadas can represent rebirth and metamorphosis, given their lengthy life cycles and the trademark empty husks from which they emerge. Curses, on the other hand, are a staple of Japanese folklore, as much as they are in Western myths. We might associate the idea of the curse with witches and old hags, those who go against the Christian God in many cases. But in Japan, one doesn't necessarily need to be a practicing witch to know how to perform a curse. Sure, older folklore will center around old women bestowing curses on people who cross them, but nowadays, as long as you are industrious enough and well-read, anyone can place curses on anyone else. Ah, the power of knowledge.
The shortest film of the bunch, even more so than Crevices, is Blonde Kaidan, written and directed by Takashi Shimizu, who directed the first 4 Grudge films in Japan as well as the first 2 American iterations of the franchise. Again, we can't give too much away about this one, but we can say that Shimizu's first American Grudge film hit theaters less than a month after this anthology aired. And since he had the privilege of directing both the original and its American adaptation, he takes this opportunity to have his main character talk mad shit about Hollywood remakes. Talk about having your cake and eating it too. Again.
All status.
The other thing to note about Blonde Kaidan is the second half of that title. How come, with all the others being translated, this one isn't? Well, Kaidan is composed of 2 kanji. A According to Hyakumonogatari, this is one of those situations, like with yokai, where a direct translation doesn't exist, so we maintain the original word instead. In fact, the kwai of Kaidan and kai of yokai are the same character, meaning something like weird, strange, or mysterious. The kanji dan means to discuss or talk. So while the phrase could be translated as something like ghost story, as it sometimes is, this doesn't really do the name justice. In the case of Blonde Kaidan, we're dealing with a specific kind of Japanese eerie tale, done in an American setting, as indicated by the blonde of the title.
The final film in the anthology, Presentiment, was directed by Masayuki Ochiai, best known for other projects like Parasite Eve and Shudder. It was co-written by Toshiya Ono, who, as far as we can tell, didn't go on to do anything else of major note. Presentiment deals with a corporate employee set on embezzling a large amount of client data and selling it after fleeing the area. As luck would have it, he gets stuck on an elevator, which leads to some pretty tense situations. Important to note here, without giving anything away, is that he works and gets on the elevator on the 4th floor of his building. This will no doubt come up again in the future, but the number 4 in Japan is treated somewhat like the number 13 in the West. She, one of the pronunciations for the numeral, sounds identical to the character which both denotes the standalone noun for death and is used in the verb to die. This avoidance of the number 4 is actually pretty common within this region of Asia, not just in Japan. But it's important to note because in Japan specifically, numbering systems like those used in large buildings will typically skip this number.
Also of note is that Ochiai slips in a sly nod to his film, Infection, released just a month before the anthology aired. We won't spoil the joke, but just know going into this short film that Infection deals with a sudden outbreak of a virus within a hospital.
After the 5 films wrap up, we head back to the bus with our creepy old woman narrator, and we ride off into the night. If you're looking for a goofy, spooky, little collection of pretty high-quality short films from 5 different horror directors, give Dark Tales of Japan a look. Those of you out there with an interest in Japan who severely miss Are You Afraid of the Dark will be pleasantly surprised by what you find on this lonely bus ride. Any 90s kids in the audience?